What's going on, boxing fans? Jordan Williams with the distance. Have a prediction video for you guys today. This one is Brian the Beast Minto versus Marco Huck. Excuse me. WBO Cruiserweight Championship on the line for this fight, May 1st. Really good fight. Actually, it's a very interesting fight, to say the least. Very interesting because Brian the Beast Minto has been at heavyweight his whole career since like 2002. And his last fight was about 218 against Chris Arreola, and now he's coming down to cruiserweight, at the age of 35. So really, I don't know what kind of effect that coming down to 200 pounds will have on his body. Though he did look a little bit pudgy in that fight, and actually his whole career looked a bit pudgy. So maybe coming down weight could do well, but at the age of 35, I'm really not sure. But Brian Minto did give a pretty decent performance against Chris Arreola on December the 5th, 2009, last time he fought. But the problem with Brian Minto in that fight was he didn't shorten up his shots. He kept throwing wide, and Chris Arreola was able to get right hands in. And Brian Minto's whole career, he's been caught with right hands. It's pretty much how it's always been because he throws quite wide. Marco Huck, on the other hand, is actually coming off of a pretty good victory back on March 13th. He had a pretty good victory, third round knockout. And Marco Huck, just became the WBO Cruiserweight Championship a while ago, and it actually had a big string of knockouts since his loss to Steve USS Cunningham in March of, I think it was either March or May 2007 when he lost to Steve Cunningham. When he lost to him by TKO in the 12th round. And in that fight, you saw towards the very end, he was actually tired. He was tired, and Cunningham was able to get through the guard, and he was actually able to time him well and get inside that guard. So really, it's kind of what won Cunningham the fight. That, and he was boxing very well against him. So anyway, on to this fight, really good fight, as I mentioned, and it's gonna be. I think the story of this fight is how does a heavyweight coming down in weight at the age of 35 do against a young cruiserweight champion like Marco Huck, a fighter who's probably on the come up and on the brink of possibly being the king of the cruiserweight division. He's probably the number 2 fighter in the cruiserweight division, behind the man that beat him, Steve USS Cunningham. But Marco Huck, pretty much gives you action-packed fights. Now on the Marco Huck does a very good job with his left jab. His left jab is very sharp, very precise, and it's a very stiff left jab. He's disciplined as well. Right after he throws, it's like with Kessler, as I mentioned. Right after he throws, the hands are back up. His hands, and it's like that automatically for Marco Huck. He does a very good job of that. He keeps his distance, and other than that, he's a very good body puncher. Very good body puncher, and I think that's what he wants to be against Brian Minto, a fighter who's in fact coming down in weight. And due to the fact that Brian Minto has to come down to 200 pounds, a weight that he's never been at, he does want to test the body. He wants a pretty good body attack on Brian Minto, because Brian Minto, his hands sometimes are really far away. His guard's kind of far away. So what Huck wants to do, Huck wants to throw hooks to the body. He does throw very good hooks to the body, and kind of swings he swings his arms kind of from the hip. He shoots from the hip, and really it's kind of what he needs to do in this fight, because Minto's always going to come forward. He wants to keep that distance from Minto, and he wants to use that left jab to create that space. Use left jab, create the space, but at the same time, use the left jab to set up your body shots, body combinations, left jab, keeping distance, staying off the ropes, of course, because if Brian Minto gets you on the ropes, it's kind of where Minto wants you. So really, that's what Marco Huck needs to do. He needs to fight like a typical Marco Huck fight. He needs to fight disciplined. He needs to use his jab. He needs to go to the body. And in this fight, he wants to go to the body a little bit more, because when you lose weight, especially with Brian Minto, and who knows, he may still be a bit pudgy. But when you lose that body fat, sometimes it's just all bone down that area, or or a body shot will feel differently at cruiserweight than it felt at heavyweight because the loss of weight. So really, it's going to feel differently than it did at heavyweight. So I think that body shots could be a problem. And as well, throw the right hand. As I mentioned, Brian Minto has trouble guarding himself, protecting himself against the right hand, and throwing shorter shots because Brian Minto throws wide. Brian Minto in this fight definitely has to try to make this fight in the inside, because if he makes this fight in the inside, he could definitely beat Marco Huck if he can make it an inside fight, if he can make it an inside battle. With Brian Minto comes forward. He throws a very good left jab, double left jab. Does a very good double left jab, and sometimes it sets up his power shots, but sometimes he just throws the double left jab just to throw it, and doesn't really follow it up. In this fight, he has to follow up every shot, and he wants Marco Huck on the defensive in this fight. And if he can use the double left jab to get himself on the inside and get some power shots off, if Brian Minto can pretty much keep this fight in the inside, get some hooks on the inside, because Brian Minto, when he gets on the inside, that's when he gets going. And against Arreola, he wasn't able to get on the inside. Arreola pretty much he threw right hands, and he kept coming back, and it led to the knockout. And though it was a good display of heart, he kept getting up, but he just kept getting hit with right hands. If Brian Minto can pretty much outwork Marco Huck on the inside, if he can outwork him on the inside, he could win the fight. If he can outwork him on the inside and do it for a full 12 rounds, he needs a very high volume of punches on the inside, and he doesn't want to give. And as well, he wants to time Marco Huck as well. He wants to time him, because if he could time him well, he can get that shot through the guard. Time him with maybe a right hook, and try to follow it up with the straight left hand. And that straight left hand can get through the guard. But anyway, if you ask me, my prediction for this upcoming fight, I want to go with Marco Huck. I think that Marco Huck could possibly if he can get it to the later stages of the fight, he could wear down Brian Minto and probably I'd say he'd probably get a 12-round stoppage. I like Marco Huck by a 12-round stoppage. I think he could wear him. I think that with Marco Huck's style and him being a very good body puncher, I think he could wear down Brian Minto and get the 12-round stoppage. But anyway, that was the distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.